What's next for the NFL's rushing king and the rest of the Bills running backs? We're going to explore that today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate you all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Well, folks, welcome in. We're talking running backs today on this episode, and I want to reflect on the season that was and project things moving forward and, of course, identify the needs that the Bills have at this position group. And we're doing this for all the positions. We did quarterbacks yesterday. Today is going to be running backs. Let's start with James Cook, a 2022 second-round pick, number 63 overall. He's 26 years old. He turns 27 in September. He's entering year one of his 4-year, $46 million contract extension. In 2025, he had 309 carries, which is a career high, by 72 rushes for 1,621 yards, also a career high, 12 rushing touchdowns. Only had 33 catches, though, for 291 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, when you talk about James Cook's rushing numbers, they're outstanding. He led the league in rushing. He also led the league in fumbles, had 6 of them. Derrick Henry was number 2 with 4, and then nobody else had more than 3. And, of course, he had a costly fumble in the playoff loss to the Broncos. Some advanced metrics on James Cook. He was number 2 in the NFL in rush yards over expectation per carry at plus 1.2. That's pretty impressive. And among the 42 running backs in the NFL with at least 125 carries, he ranked number 2 in yards per carry at 5.25. He ranked number 5 in success rate at 56.6%. He ranked number 9 in stuff rate, so that's good, right? You don't want to be stuffed. 9th best stuff rate at 40.8%. He was number 8 in yards after contact per attempt at 2.45 yards, but he was only 20th out of 43 in missed tackles forced per attempt at 0.16. So let's talk about his 2025 season, which, of course, started with a lot of contract drama. And it ended with him winning the rushing title. And boy, am I glad they got that deal done. And it was obviously a bumpy road. There was a lot of conversation about what the right amount was, and it came in exactly where I said the right amount was. And I think that's where you find a win here. And the Bills got a good value on that deal, now looking at a guy that just won the rushing title. And if he would have played this season and then we were looking at it right now as a deal that needs to get done, it's a different conversation, especially in a free agent crop that includes guys like Bijan Robinson and Devon Achane and Jahmyr Gibbs, who are all looking for contract extensions. You have a free agent class that includes Travis Etienne and Javonte Williams and Ken Walker. So Breece Hall, also a free agent. So it feels good for the Bills to not be in all of that. James Cook locked up on a deal that already looks like it's aging well. He was super steady. And if you think about James Cook, he really played 18 games this year. So 16 regular season games, because we're not really counting week 18, and then 2 playoff games. So he played 18 games. He had 100 scrimmage yards in 13 of those 18. He had at least 75 scrimmage yards in 16 of those 18. And he had at least 15 touches in every game. He had a huge role. And I loved the versatility that he demonstrated. And when I say versatility, I mean how multiple the Bills' rushing schemes are and how much the run schemes look different every week. And James Cook executes, right? He's a smart, versatile runner that has a great feel for all the different concepts. And so if they want to run mid-zone, if they want to attack the edges, if they want to be gap heavy, they want to be outside zone heavy, like whatever they wanted to do, James Cook could execute that style of run. And so he had a great year running the football. There's no question. Of course, I've already pointed out the fumbles. It was a big play in the Denver loss. It was a big play in the Miami loss. Too many fumbles. Got to get that cleaned up. I will say this, for as much as I loved what James Cook did running the football, I sure wish that he had a bigger role catching the football, and I think his receiving profile needs to expand. There were 6 running backs in the NFL in 2025 that had at least 1,800 yards from scrimmage. Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Devon Achane. James Cook had the lowest percentage of his yards as receiving yards. Only 15% of James Cook's scrimmage yards were receiving. That's by far the lowest of any of these backs. To give you some comparisons, Bijan Robinson, 36% of his yards were receiving. Christian McCaffrey, 43%. Jahmyr Gibbs, 33%. Devon Achane, 27%. And then James Cook at 15%. Certainly a missing piece of what should be a huge part of his role. And I wish that it was, because this is an area of his game that I feel like he could really excel. That was the whole appeal with James Cook as a prospect coming out of Georgia, was the receiving profile. And it feels like it's just something the Bills haven't tapped into enough of, especially this past year. Now, I'm optimistic about this because I get the impression that Joe Brady is really taking this offense into a full Sean Payton offense, of course, with Pete Carmichael now his offensive coordinator. And running backs catching the football is a huge part of a Sean Payton offense. Think about Reggie Bush, Darren Sproles, Alvin Kamara. Even Pierre Thomas had like a 77 catch season with the Saints. And so I'm really hopeful to see a lot more in the passing game for James Cook. So that kind of gets us into the 2026 outlook. And I would say, first of all, maintain your status as one of the best running backs in the NFL, a guy that's going to be towards the top of the league in scrimmage yards, and, of course, a key playmaker for this Bills offense. Clean up the fumbles, and I really hope to see that receiving profile expand. And, in fact, less carries but more catches would be fine with me. You know, James Cook is a back that, to me, should be around 50 catches at least every year. 50 to 80 catches should be a normal range. And you just haven't seen enough of it, and I think that's a big part of where his game could go and take things to the next level for him and this offense. And so James Cook had a great season. There's no denying it. Running the football, arguably the best in the league this year. I want to see those fumbles cleaned up, and let's get this receiving profile going because I think there's more that he can offer this offense, and I hope that Pete Carmichael and Joe Brady tap into that more in 2026 and beyond. All right. The backup running backs, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, we'll focus on them next. Folks, be sure to stick with me. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. You'll get unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. And Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits will save you hours every week. And knowing that you can reach certified HR experts at any time will give you real peace of mind. So try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. And get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. One more time, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays. Stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back, folks. Let's talk about Ty Johnson and Ray Davis. Ty Johnson first, a 2023 free agent signing. He's 28 years old. He will turn 29 in September. He's entering the second year of his 2-year, $5 million contract that he signed last offseason. Now, he can be released for $2.5 million in savings and only $820,000 in dead cap. So it's worth mentioning that. I don't think that will happen or should happen, but I want to at least point out these possibilities to you. I would also say that maybe he's a sneaky extension candidate. He does have a $3.275 million 2026 cap hit. And so maybe the Bills add a year to the deal and push some of that to 2027. It's certainly a possibility. And that's part of what I want to do in these episodes, is highlight some of these contract possibilities that exist. So that'll be part of these conversations. In 2025, Ty Johnson carried the ball 50 times for 200 yards with 3 rushing touchdowns. Also had 24 catches for 263 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. And believe it or not, he had more rushes and more catches than he did last year. In fact, 15 more touches, but 2 yards less per touch. He had a couple of big catches down the field last year that we didn't quite get replicated this year. But overall, more rushing attempts, more catches than last year, and played about the same amount of snaps, around 30% of the snaps. He also contributed 127 special team snaps. So there's a lot of value that Ty Johnson provides this football team in a bunch of different ways. So when considering his 2025 review, I thought he had a very similar impact to what he provided in 2024. Like I said, about 30% of the snaps, filling a somewhat notable role in pass protection, gets a few touches per game, helps, of course, on special teams. But one thing that really came on this year that was somewhat prevalent last year was his role in the screen game, which, of course, we know is a Khalil Shakir screen game. On screens this past year, Khalil Shakir had 22 catches for 142 yards. Well, Ty Johnson was the number 2 guy in the screen game with 12 catches for 129 yards. In fact, 25% of the screens that the Bills ran in 2025 went to Ty Johnson. So, of course, it's heavy Shakir, but Ty Johnson has a decent role there as well. And it really, towards the end of the season, started to become a lot more about Ty Johnson in the screen game. Just to give you the full picture on screens, I mentioned Shakir 22 for 142, Johnson 12 for 129. Then Dalton Kincaid has 6 for 68, Dawson Knox 3 for 17, James Cook 2 for 14, Coleman had 1 for 8, Brandon Cooks had 1 for 8, Elijah Moore had 2 for 2 yards, and then Ray Davis 1 for -1. That's the full screen picture last year for the Bills. And so in 2026, I hope that Ty Johnson is back and continues to be a quality depth player for the Bills that can do multiple things. He fits really well with the Sean Payton offense, multifaceted receiving skill set, can block, and he's got some power to him. He's like 210 pounds, runs in the 4.4s. He's a good all-around player. And so I think he's a perfect depth running back, and he fits well with where this offense wants to go. And I hope that he's back doing a similar type thing as he's done the last couple of years for the Bills. Let's talk Ray Davis, a 2024 4th-round pick, number 128 overall. He's 26, turns 27 in November. And, he was an older player when the Bills drafted him. So he'll be 28 when his rookie deal is over. He's entering year 3 of his 4-year, $4.7 million rookie contract. His 2025 production really fell off compared to his rookie year. So in 2025, 58 rushes, 275 yards, no touchdowns. Keeping in mind, 21 of those 58 rushes came in week 18 against the Jets. He had 113 rushes last year. He had 58 this past year. And this past year, he had 10 catches for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. Last year, he had 17 catches for 189 yards and 3 touchdowns. So just a notable drop in scrimmage production from Ray Davis in his second season, which is somewhat of a surprise. Now, I think a lot of that went to James Cook. So you're not overly upset because James Cook is a heck of a player and you want that to go to him. But you also had a lot on James Cook and, had a crazy amount of touches compared to his norms for his career. And Ray Davis, really just didn't have much of a role this year for the offense. Where last year, I thought that was one of the big storylines was, hey, you had 3 backs that you all established in a meaningful way. Well, this year it was James Cook and kind of Ty Johnson and not really Ray Davis. Now, of course, when you're talking Ray Davis, the return piece is notable. At 31 returns, averaged 30.4 yards per attempt with a touchdown, and was named All-Pro kick returner. And so the special teams profile is part of it. He had 131 special team snaps, which is the 11th most on the team. And he's not just the kick returner. He plays on punt return, punt coverage, and of course, the kick return piece. Now, let me say this about the kick return piece of Ray Davis, and I mean this very respectfully. I think Ray Davis did a very good job, and I'm excited for him to continue as the kick returner. But I think so much of his success was the unique scheme that Chris Tabor implemented, where they went with a single returner and a fullback, and then they ran these like different run schemes off of it, which I think was a great wrinkle. But I think that was at the core of what happened is you had a really good scheme. Now, Ray Davis executed well, but it's a little bit to me like when Tua led the league in passing, nobody's confusing Tua as this like dynamic, lighted up passer, where I think Ray Davis benefited in terms of how his skill set fit into the schemes that Chris Tabor introduced, and then you saw the production. And so I'm curious to see how Jeff Rodgers implements things. He had a lot of success with DJ Dallas, who's a, big, dense running back in 2024. Maybe that'll happen with Ray Davis this year, but I just want to be careful. It's not like I think Ray Davis is an all-world returner. I think he has a good skill set for that style of return, and I hope that we get to see more of that this coming year. But I don't think that Ray Davis is like this, in a vacuum, exceptional kick returner, if that makes sense. In 2025, in terms of his review, I expected more, to be honest with you. The kick return piece really kind of saved the season in terms of his impact as a sophomore. Week 18 was nice. He looked good against the Jets, right, in that last game. But overall, he took less of a role, and his impact was next to nothing offensively until that Week 18 game. Again, that was offset by James Cook, but there was definitely a missing contributions based on my expectations entering the year from Ray Davis. So the outlook for 2026 is, look, I like the skill set. He's a physical runner. He can catch the ball. He can help on kick return. And I think he complements this room really well, where he's different than Cook and Johnson. He's got that dense build, kind of that hammer between the tackles, but also can play teams, can catch the ball a little bit as well. But ultimately, I'm just not sure what to expect. Year 3 for him, what does this look like? What can we count on? I think that's going to be a fascinating layer. I think it'll continue to be the James Cook show. And of course, if everyone's healthy, how does Ray Davis make an impact? I'm fascinated to find out. And I'm sure he'll get a chance to continue to be the kick returner, but is it somewhere in between? Is it somewhere in between the rookie and sophomore season? What can we expect? I think it's a big question that I have going into 2026. All right, coming up next, I want to talk about Reggie Gilliam, who's actually an expiring contract. So I have some thoughts on that, and we'll tie a ribbon on this overall conversation and set the tone for the offseason at running back. So folks, be sure to stick with me. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. February can be a lot. Flowers, candy, stuffed animals, and so much talk about relationships. And honestly, it can feel like everyone else has it all together in their love life. But here's the truth. Whether you're married, dating, single, or just focusing on you, most people are still figuring it out. And no matter where you are in your romantic journey, therapy can help you find your way. It can help you get clear on what you want, what feels heavy, and how to take some pressure off yourself. It's easy to assume everyone else has the perfect relationship, but most people are working through something. Therapy can help you recognize patterns that might be weighing the relationship down. It can help you communicate better, set healthier boundaries, and stop carrying everything alone. And even if you're not in a relationship right now, therapy can help you feel more confident in what you want moving forward. The biggest thing, it reminds you that you're not behind, you're right on time. BetterHelp has licensed therapists in the United States, and they do the initial matching for you so you can focus on your goals. And if you want to switch therapists, you can do so at any time. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp.com/lockedon. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever. Just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online, and they'll handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives you real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it all. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150. All in, if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Welcome back, folks. Let's talk about Reggie Gilliam, the Bills fullback, a 2020 undrafted free agent. He's 28 years old, turns 29 in August, and his contract is expired. He completed his 1-year, $2 million deal. In 2025, he played 21% of the offensive snaps, which is a career high, and is a 4-phase special teamer and was actually third in special teams tackles. I think he's one of the best special teamers this team has. I think that group is Sam Franklin, Reggie Gilliam, Joe Andreessen, Dorian Williams. Those are your 4 best special teams players. In 2025, I thought he had like his best season as a traditional fullback. Of course, he didn't really touch the ball. He had 4 touches for 28 yards, and 26 of those 28 yards came in Week 18 against the Jets. But the blocking was outstanding. There were some games where you could just feel him. He was blasting open holes for James Cook and, really part of attacking those edges a lot of times with Shavers and, Knox and Hawes and Gilliam, and you win the edge when you're throwing those bodies at it and having James Cook running behind it. And so I thought he was absolutely terrific this year, lead blocking. He actually had a role in pass protection, had 24 snaps of pass pro, keeping in mind he had 20 the last 2 seasons combined. So that ramped up a little bit. And, the special teams piece, I think he's just an all-around super useful player as a fullback and special teamer. So my 2026 outlook here is I'd love to have him back. What's the cost, right? A lot of people believe that Reggie Gilliam should have been a Pro Bowler this year. Patrick Ricard was the Pro Bowler from the AFC. He signed a 1-year, $2.875 million contract entering the year. Do you have to go 1 year, $3 million on Reggie Gilliam? I look at CJ Ham, who's a comparable player for the Vikings. Very similar age, impact, not a guy who touches the ball, but a lead blocker in special teams. CJ Ham in 2023 signed a 2-year, $8.65 million deal. Is he going to be a more than $4 million a year fullback? These are questions that Brandon Beane has to consider. Like, what gets this done? Of course, I'd bring him back for 1 year, $2 million. But what does the market dictate on a guy like Reggie Gilliam? I don't know. I would guess it's probably around $3 million a season, maybe a little bit more. Is that something where you think to yourself, we'd like to draft somebody that we can have on a rookie deal and have very minimal invested in the fullback position for 4 years? What if you can find Jackson Hawes, but at fullback in the draft? I don't know who that player would be. I'm speaking hypothetically because I think you have to ask yourself some questions about how much you want to have invested cap-wise in your fullback. Now, fullback is part of the Sean Payton offense. They had Adam Prentice this past year with the Broncos. He's a good fullback. Came in like at a 1 year, minimum type contract. So I love Reggie Gilliam. I want him back. I'm mindful of the year that he had and what the market might dictate here. So I hope this can work out because I'd love to have him back, especially the special teams phase. is really a big part of what he delivers as well. So he's useful. It's just about, all right, where do you want your cap money tied up? And it becomes a little bit tricky when you're talking about fullbacks and potentially being $3 or $4 million a year. I will mention Frank Gore Jr. He signed a futures contract with the Bills, so he is back in the mix. So I like to close these conversations by considering what do the Bills have and what do the Bills need? Well, what they have is really their top 4 running backs locked up. James Cook is locked up. You got another year with Ty Johnson. You got 2 more years with Ray Davis. And Frank Gore Jr. signed the futures contract. So you have all of those players in place right now. So what do they need? Well, they're just going to need at running back one more body for camp. Your Darrington Evans type player, your Antonio Williams, your Raheem Blackshear type player, whatever low investment, maybe a modest veteran, UDFA. You'll just need one more guy to kind of have your camp roster set with 5. The bigger question in terms of what do you need to do is figuring out the Reggie Gilliam piece. You're either going to need to get a deal done with Reggie Gilliam or find a way to replace Reggie Gilliam with a more economic option. But that's probably the biggest thing they have to figure out. I don't think you have any real contract stuff to work out. I talked about Ty Johnson, how you have a possibility there. You can cut him and save $2.5 million. You can also extend him for a year and maybe push a little bit of his money into 2027. But I think that's really it. What do you want to do with Ty Johnson? And then if you move on, then you will need a more meaningful investment at running back. I don't think you should put yourself in that spot. But then the fullback piece and Reggie Gilliam, and if you want to get a deal done and what it costs. I think that's what you got to figure out here. So there you have it. Running backs. We talked about them. 2025 review, 2026 outlook in the books. We'll get to tight ends, receivers as well here very soon. And keep working through this offseason. Got some coaching hires. The Bills added an outside linebackers coach, an inside linebackers coach. So we'll get to those conversations here very soon as well. And a corners coach that I'm pretty excited about. So we got a lot to do as we continue to talk Bills football every day for you here on Locked On Bills. All year long, every day. Don't miss it. Make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.